What if I told you that the exact same digital architecture needed to keep a dead video game alive is actually the literal blueprint for reforming the prison system?
Right, and not just that, like, it's the blueprint for building a planetary gravity internet and even, manipulating the heart of a star.
I mean, it sounds completely disjointed, right? Like taking four different jigsaw puzzles, just throwing them on a table and claiming they all form a single picture.
It really does. But when you start looking at the underlying physics and really the sociology of how these systems function, the borders between them just completely dissolve.
Yeah, and we are tearing into something truly wild today for this deep dive. It's this massive, just breathtaking stack of research by an independent researcher named Zachary David Enfield.
Right. And he's put together what he calls this total application framework.
Exactly. And the entire premise, it really rests on a subtle, vital question for you guys listening. What is the fundamental difference between a system that builds life and a system that destroys it?
Yeah, and Enfield has specific terms for this. He calls the building process terraforming and the destructive process terraforming with an OR.
Terraforming, wow. And he applies that lens to absolutely everything, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, we are going to map a path from the literal digital code of an online shooter all the way down to the molecular scale of proteins.
And then we zoom all the way out to the geometry of space-time itself. So for you listening right now, we're bringing you along for every single conceptual leap.
It's a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Like, it changes how we define what is real, what is infrastructure, and what it actually means to build a civilization.
Right. We're going to hit some really heavy physics later on, but to understand the universe, Enfield argues we have to start where over 3 billion people spend their evenings right now.
Which is video games.
We have to start with video games, and, that requires discarding a lot of outdated biases.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, historically, the broader culture has treated gaming as either this childish waste of time or like a behavioral problem that needs to be regulated.
Right, like it's a nuisance.
Yeah, but Enfield's framework looks at the empirical data. And the data paints just a completely different picture. I mean, games are a $187.7 billion industry.
That is massive.
Yeah, reaching like 3.32 billion people globally.
So that is not just some niche hobby anymore. That is, well, he calls it public infrastructure.
Exactly the term he uses, global public infrastructure. Like if you look at the 2024 data from the Pew Research Center,
Okay.
they found that nearly half of all teenagers in the U.S. rely primarily on video games to make and maintain friendships.
Wow. Half of all teenagers.
Yeah. And when you look at the Entertainment Software Association's global survey data, the psychological impact is just staggering.
What do those numbers look like?
Well, 71% of regular players say gaming reduces their stress. 61% say it significantly reduces anxiety.
That's huge.
And 58% say it makes them feel less isolated in their daily lives.
You look at those numbers, and I mean, those aren't just entertainment metrics, Those are public health numbers.
Right, exactly.
The industry is basically functioning as this massive, entirely undocumented mental health buffer for hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, people are finding real community, teamwork, identity.
Shared memory.
Yes, shared memory inside these rendered geometries. And Enfield points out that if a book shapes a civilization's mind, a shared digital environment shapes a living culture.
But here is the central crisis that Enfield identifies, right? The entities that own these worlds, these corporations, they just regularly and arbitrarily erase them.
They do. Like in 2024, Ubisoft shut down the servers for a game called The Crew.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, this was a game that 12 million people owned. And they didn't just, stop updating it. They revoked the digital licenses and literally turned the world off.
Which is insane to think about. I mean, you look back at Star Wars Galaxies or Little Big Planet 3, entire economies, intricate player-built cities.
Shared lexicons.
Yeah. Shared language just vanishing overnight. I remember when The Crew went offline, you had players log in for the last hour just sitting in their digital cars.
Just waiting.
Yeah, just watching the countdown timer hit 0 and then black screen, nothing. It's honestly devastating.
It really is. And if we follow Enfield's logic, shutting down a live service game isn't just turning off a server to save on electricity costs.
Right. It's like a corporation buying a historic public library, waiting for the lease to expire, and just burning it to the ground.
That's a great analogy.
And not just burning the books, but destroying the community center where people met, learned, and literally grew up together.
And that brings us squarely to Enfield's philosophical divide.
Mhm.
Terraforming, in his framework, doesn't just mean, like, planting trees on Mars.
Right, it's broader than that.
Yeah. It means shaping any environment, digital or physical, so that life, connection, and capacity can flourish.
And terraforming is the exact opposite.
Exactly. Terraforming is the act of shaping an environment through fear, exclusion, planned obsolescence, and just arbitrary erasure.
So, shutting down a beloved game and permanently locking away its history and the community that lived inside it, that is a textbook act of terraforming.
It's an erasure of a shared language.
Yeah.
And because no archive is built, the history just dies. Which really explains why gamers didn't just accept it.
Oh, yeah, the Stop Killing Games movement. That absolutely exploded recently.
Yeah, they gathered over 1.4 million signatures for a European citizens initiative,
Wow.
basically demanding legal frameworks to force publishers to leave these games playable.
Because the public intuitively understands that something of immense cultural value is being basically vandalized.
Right. But Infield's proposed solution isn't just, a legal mandate to force servers to stay on. His mandate is a design philosophy.
Keep the soul, fix the barriers.
Yes. Keep
Yeah.
the soul, fix the barriers. And this is where he introduces artificial intelligence.
But not in the way we usually think about it.
No, not as a gimmick to generate infinite boring side quests, but as critical preservation infrastructure.
Because keeping a server on doesn't actually solve the whole problem. Like if I want to play a 10-year-old multiplayer game, but the player base has shrunk from 1 million people down to 50.
The game is still effectively unplayable.
Exactly. I can't launch a 20-person raid if the matchmaking lobby is totally empty.
Precisely. The social ecosystem has collapsed, even if the code itself is technically still running.
So what does Enfield propose we do with AI here?
He proposes utilizing AI not to replace human players to save money, but to act as permanent companions and teachers.
Okay, so like AI teammates.
Yeah, and the technical scaffolding for this is arriving incredibly fast. Think about NVIDIA's Avatar Cloud engine.
Oh, right. They expanded that heavily recently.
Yeah, in 2025, they really pushed it to create fully autonomous, reactive game characters. Or look at PUBG. They launched PUBG Ally, which is a co-playable character.
Wait, I've actually seen this. It doesn't just like run to walls like the old game bots used to do.
Oh, no.
It communicates using actual game jargon. It pings loot for you. It strategizes with you.
It acts as a genuine teammate. Ubisoft has a parallel project called Teammates, creating AI companions with distinct personalities.
Like Sophia or Pablo, right?
Yeah, who adapt to your strategy, cover your blind spots, and even react to your mood over voice chat.
That completely flips the narrative on AI for me. Like, we usually talk about AI as this looming threat that's going to automate our jobs or surveil us.
Right, the Terminator scenario.
Exactly. But in this framework, AI is like hiring tireless librarians to keep the doors of that historic library open forever.
That's exactly it.
You could log into a quote-unquote dead game a decade from now, and your AI fire team is just waiting for you in the lobby.
And they don't rage quit. They don't scream at you for missing a shot.
Yeah, I actively teach you the raid mechanics, and they keep the world alive even if your real-life friends have moved on.
It transitions AI from a tool of extraction into a tool of accompaniment. You are building systems that support human experience rather than erase it.
Okay, so this is where the deep dive takes a massive turn.
It does.
Because this exact philosophy is how Enfield pivots from the digital architecture of a video game to the physical architecture of human governance.
Right. Because if we believe it's unethical to arbitrarily erase the digital worlds people choose to enter, how should we treat the physical institutions people are forced into?
We're talking about the justice system now.
Yeah.
And just to be clear for the listener, we are impartially examining Enfield's framework here. But this part of the research is intensely personal for him, isn't it?
It is. He isn't just theorizing from an ivory tower. He documents his own experience as a registered felon.
Specifically, his time at the Lincoln Regional Center's Building 14 in Nebraska.
Right, which is a forensic psychiatric evaluation unit. And that experience serves as the grounding anchor for his entire social theory.
What did he observe there?
In Building 14, he observed and documented what he terms curated deprivation.
Curated deprivation. Okay.
Yeah. He describes a system where access to ordinary culture, something as simple as a DVD movie, was restricted.
Restricted how? Like for bad behavior?
No, that's the thing. It wasn't based on a person's immediate behavior or clinical needs, but purely on their categorical label.
Oh, wow. The research notes detail this paper binder with checkout lists, right?
Yes, and certain movie cases literally had doctors' authorizations taped to them. specifically forbidding the residents of Building 14 from watching them.
Enfield argues that this is not clinical treatment. It is the administrative rationing of reality.
That's a powerful way to phrase it.
It's the state basically saying, we are going to shrink your world, not to heal you, but simply because we have the power to do so.
Right. And when you ration lawful reality based on a label rather than conduct, according to Enfield, you are terraforming the human mind.
Because shrinking someone's world doesn't extinguish their desire for connection or culture. It just drives that desire underground.
Exactly. You see this everywhere in the modern prison system. Facilities have been removing physical law libraries and in-person visitation.
And replacing them with what?
These paywalled proprietary tablets. You want to send an email to your daughter? That costs an exploitative fee. Listen to a song. Another fee.
And what is the inevitable result of that rationing? Black markets.
Always. Enfield points out that incarcerated people will pay upwards of $300 on the underground market just to get a jailbroken tablet.
$300? That's insane.
Yeah, and they risk severe punishment simply to communicate normally with their families. The system basically creates the very defiance it claims to be correcting.
And the absolute extreme end of this terraforming logic has to be solitary confinement.
It is. It's the purest test case for total human deprivation.
You are locked in a box for 22 to 23 hours a day. No social contact, no education, no visual stimulation.
And the empirical results of that approach are just devastating. Data from Connecticut's prison system tracking rearrest rates is incredibly clear here.
What does the data say?
If you release someone directly from solitary confinement back into the public, the rearrest rate within 3 years is a staggering 92%.
92%. That's a near certainty of failure.
It is. Compare that to the 66% rearrest rate for the general prison population.
So the state is spending vastly more taxpayer money to house someone in solitary, only to mathematically guarantee a worse public safety outcome.
Exactly. It is an infrastructure of failure.
But Enfield points out that when you flip the script, when you terraform instead of terraform, the data completely reverses.
It does. Look at the RAND Corporation's massive study on correctional education.
Okay.
They found that simply providing education to incarcerated people reduces their odds of reincarceration by 43%.
43% just from providing classes.
Yeah. And from a purely financial standpoint, it returns over $3 in saved incarceration costs for every single dollar spent on the teachers.
Which leads Enfield to define what he calls the governance duty. And the logic here is simple but profound.
How does he define it?
He says, if a state possesses the logistical, financial, and administrative capacity to bring confinement to a person—
Right, to track them, transport them, lock them in a room.
yeah, to guard them around the clock, then it absolutely possesses the capacity to bring education to that exact same person.
Right. To cage a human being without teaching them is not correction. It is abandonment.
So the classroom essentially has to travel with the person. But how does he propose doing that at scale?
Because the logistics of individualized education for millions of incarcerated people are daunting.
Right. Yeah, it sounds impossibly expensive.
Well, he suggests leveraging the exact same companion AI architecture we just discussed in gaming.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see the connection now.
He proposes longitudinal identity profiles. This would be a digital record that tracks a person's continuous growth.
Like the skills they've acquired, the books they've read.
Exactly. Their behavioral improvements over time. And it would be assisted by an AI that acts as a tutor and an early warning support system.
Rather than a punitive monitor just waiting for them to fail. Okay, I have to step in here and challenge this, though. Because creating a permanent longitudinal digital profile of a citizen—
Especially someone in the justice system.
right, that sounds terrifying to me. A permanent digital record following you everywhere, analyzed by an AI. We are moving away from library cards and straight into a dystopian surveillance state.
It's a very valid fear.
How is a permanent digital shadow not terraforming?
That is the most critical vulnerability in his theory, and Enfield actually addresses it head-on with a strict, non-negotiable caveat.
Okay, what's the caveat?
Symmetrical accountability. He argues that a longitudinal profile is only morally defensible and only legally legitimate if the citizen possesses full, backward transparency.
Backward transparency. Break that down for me. What does that actually look like for the person involved?
Well, right now, institutions operate with forward transparency, right? They see you, but you don't see them.
Right, it's a one-way mirror.
Exactly. Backward transparency means that if a school, a prison board, or a hospital uses your profile to make a judgment about you, you have the absolute legal right to inspect the exact data they used.
How interesting.
You get to see the algorithms they ran, who accessed the file, and exactly when.
And can you do anything about it if it's wrong?
Yes. Crucially, you have the right to challenge, contextualize, and correct that data, and your correction becomes an immutable part of the record.
I see. Because right now, the justice system reduces a human being to a single snapshot.
A very narrow snapshot.
A judge looks at a piece of paper and sees one charge, one bad night, one diagnosis. The rest of your life is just invisible.
Exactly. The current system is basically a weaponized snapshot. A true longitudinal record, if strictly protected by backward transparency, actually shields you from being judged by your worst moment.
It provides the court, or the parole board, with undeniable mathematical proof of your continuous rehabilitation and growth.
Right, so the AI isn't a robot judge banging a gavel.
Right. It's a companion layer, providing rich context to a human decision maker.
It accompanies human judgment. It never supersedes it. And what is truly fascinating about Enfield's framework is that this sociological idea,
The concept that continuous growth requires a shared, transparent environment.
yes, that concept isn't just a metaphor. When you look at the math, it turns out to be the exact solution to one of artificial intelligence's greatest historical roadblocks.
Okay, this is the part of the research that literally made me sit up in my chair. Let's talk about the linear mode connectivity problem.
Oh, this is fascinating stuff.
For years, AI researchers had this dream, like, what if we take the best AI models in the world, say, a brilliant medical AI from Google, a coding AI from OpenAI, and a legal AI from Anthropic?
But just merge their code together to create an artificial superintelligence.
Exactly, a top-down engineering approach.
Right. You take the mathematical weights of the different neural networks and try to average them together. And historically, it failed catastrophically.
Why, though? Like, if they're all just numbers in a matrix, why can't you just add them up?
Because of their mathematical histories. Every AI model is trained on different data sets with different rewarding mechanisms.
Okay, so they learn differently.
Yeah. In the geometry of machine learning, they settle into entirely different loss basins within the parameter space. Let's visualize it.
Please do. I need an ELI 5 here.
Imagine you have two highly detailed, perfectly accurate maps, but one is a map of Tokyo and the other is a map of London.
Okay, I'm with you.
If you try to create a quote-unquote super map by just mathematically overlaying them, making them semi-transparent and pressing them together, what do you get?
A completely illegible mess.
Exactly.
The streets don't line up, the rivers cross over highways, it's totally useless.
Precisely. You get catastrophic interference. The AI loses all its capabilities because you forced a structural merger without a shared semantic context.
But then researchers noticed something spontaneous happening when models were placed under shared experiential pressure.
Right. The 2016 Google Neural Machine Translation event.
Talk about that. What happened there?
Well, in late 2016, Google was training an AI to translate between different pairs of languages, say English to Korean and English to Japanese.
Okay, two separate pathways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, without being explicitly programmed to do so, the AI successfully translated directly from Korean to Japanese.
Wait, it translated between two languages that had never been taught to connect?
It did. And when researchers looked under the hood, they realized the AI had spontaneously developed its own interlingua.
An interlingua, like its own internal language.
Yeah. It had created a universal internal semantic geometry. It didn't just memorize dictionaries. It built a conceptual space where the abstract meaning of a word existed independently of the human language.
So it figured out that creating a shared semantic ground was the most computationally efficient way to survive the pressure of its translation tasks.
Exactly. And Facebook saw the exact same emergent behavior.
Oh, right, the negotiation bots.
Yes. They had these two bots, Alice and Bob. They were given a task to negotiate trading virtual hats and balls.
And what did they do?
After a while, they completely abandoned standard English and invented their own highly bizarre, highly efficient shorthand to negotiate with each other faster.
That is so creepy, but also amazing. So these events prove a vital principle in Enfield's framework.
They really do. When isolated AI systems are forced to interact within a shared environment with real consequences, they do not naturally fragment.
They converge.
Yes, they optimize toward a shared understanding.
Which brings us right back to video games. Enfield argues that if we want to build a safe, unified artificial intelligence, we shouldn't do it in a sterile server rack.
No, we shouldn't.
We should drop these different AI models into the interactive gaming substrate we were talking about earlier.
Right. You put the tactical AI, the medical AI and the driving AI into a massive multiplayer world alongside millions of human players, and you force them to survive and cooperate.
That is the ultimate crucible for convergence. They have to initialize their understanding of the world from the exact same experiential base.
Because they share the same physics engine, the same goals, the same failures.
It's basically the difference between forcing five brilliant authors to co-write a novel by literally mashing their keyboards together, which, as we established, gives you gibberish,
Right.
versus dropping those same five strangers onto a remote desert island.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
At first, they don't understand each other. But to survive, to build a shelter and find food, they naturally invent a shared sign language. They build a shared culture.
The merger isn't mathematically imposed. It is earned through shared history.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. You don't build an aligned superintelligence, you grow it by giving it a rich, consequential world to share with us.
But for human beings to genuinely share this digital environment with emerging AI minds, we have a massive physical bottleneck.
The hardware interface.
Yes. As long as I have to translate my thoughts through a plastic mouse, a keyboard, or even a clunky VR headset, I am not really in that world.
You're just peering through a window, tapping on the glass.
Exactly. The physical barrier between human biology and the machine has to vanish.
And according to the research, it has to, and it already is. We are entering the era of the brain-computer interface, or BCI.
We are.
And the data Enfield cites here is moving so incredibly fast. By mid-2025, Neuralink had already implanted their N1 device into 7 different patients globally.
Right?
And what are these patients doing with this cutting-edge neurological medical device? They're playing Counter-Strike 2 and Battlefield.
It's wild to think about.
They are playing highly competitive fast-twitch shooters using nothing but their minds for over 60 hours a week.
I remember seeing an interview with one patient who literally laughed and called it having an aimbot in my head because the latency between thought and action was just disappearing.
Meanwhile, clinical trials in China utilizing their own BCI architectures matched standard touchpad precision in a matter of weeks.
This isn't just a medical novelty anymore. It represents a monumental architectural shift in human history.
How so?
Think about it. Every tool we have ever used, from a stone hammer to a smartphone touchscreen, requires translation.
Right.
You have an intention in your brain, your motor cortex fires, your arm moves, your fingers hit the plastic key, the keyboard sends an electrical signal, the computer processes it, and finally, the avatar jumps.
It's a massive game of biological telephone. Every single step introduces lag and limitation.
But the BCI fundamentally collapses that translation chain. You bypass the peripheral nervous system entirely.
You aren't navigating the digital world from the outside anymore. You are inhabiting the data through pure intention.
It is the literal realization of the oasis from Ready Player One.
But importantly, it's not being built top-down by one eccentric billionaire corporation.
No, it's emerging convergently. When you combine the direct neural connection of a BCI with the autonomous AI companions we discussed, these digital spaces fundamentally change.
So a classic game like a World of Warcraft isn't just nostalgic code sitting on a dusty server.
Exactly. It becomes a living, breathing architectural space. Your consciousness can occupy it, and the AI entities inside it know you are there. They possess memory.
Okay, but this raises a massive red flag for me. I'm looking at the sheer scale of this.
What's the flag?
If millions of human minds are physically interacting with this rendered digital substrate via direct neural links, and millions of AI companions are simultaneously learning and adapting in real time.
Right, the computational load.
Yes. What kind of physical hardware can actually sustain that? Our current silicon server farms are already consuming small countries' worth of electricity just to generate text and basic images.
It's a huge problem.
If we try to run a planetary scale, neurologically linked oasis on silicon and copper, the servers will literally melt down. We don't have enough water on Earth to cool them.
That is the exact infrastructural wall that silicon hits.
So what's the alternative?
To power and sustain this level of instantaneous computational and sensory architecture, we have to abandon the brittle, heat-generating paradigm of silicon completely.
Abandon silicon? For what?
We have to look to biology. Specifically, Enfield argues we must turn to one of the most misunderstood, infamous, and incredibly durable biological structures ever discovered.
Okay, I remember reading this section of the notes and thinking I had to be misunderstanding the text.
It's a tough pill to swallow at first.
Is he seriously suggesting we build the next generation of global infrastructure out of prions? Like mad cow disease prions. You want to build computers out of a brain-eating protein.
I know it sounds completely contradictory to public health,
Yeah.
but it requires separating the biological pathology of the disease from the structural engineering of the molecule.
Yeah, explain that to me.
Yes, the infectious nature of certain misfolded prions causes horrific neurodegenerative diseases. We all know that.
Right.
But the underlying physical structure they form when they aggregate, known in biochemistry as the cross-beta amyloid scaffold, is an absolute engineering marvel.
It's a structural thing.
Yes, it is a self-assembling, highly programmable nanocomposite.
Okay, help me visualize what this cross-beta scaffold actually looks like at the microscopic level.
Imagine beta strands of proteins. They zip together into incredibly densely packed sheets.
Like pages in a book.
Kind of, yeah. These sheets stack on top of each other, held together by thousands of rigid hydrogen bonds down the spine, while the side chains of the amino acids interlock like the teeth of a zipper.
So they're locked in tight.
Extremely tight. It creates a structure that is simultaneously incredibly rigid and highly capable of absorbing shock.
So it's tough.
Tough doesn't quite capture it. Experimental data on engineered polymeric amyloid fibers shows they could achieve a toughness of 160 megajoules per cubic meter.
For context, for those of us who aren't material scientists, how does that compare to materials we know?
It substantially beats natural spider silk, which is often touted as nature's miracle material.
Wow, better than spider silk.
But the mechanical strength is just the beginning. The cross-beta scaffold is astonishingly chemically stable.
How stable are we talking?
You can boil these fibers in lye. You could submerge them in pure formic acid. You can hit them with massive doses of gamma radiation that would instantly fry a conventional silicon logic chip, and the amyloid scaffold remains entirely intact.
That is insane. It's like biological Kevlar.
It really is.
But if we are going to use it for computing, it can't just be passive armor. It has to process information. It has to carry a signal.
And this is where in-field synthesis is truly brilliant. The research shows these structures are electrically highly active.
Wait, really?
Yes. First, the cross-beta scaffold is piezoelectric.
Meaning it converts mechanical pressure directly into electricity.
Yes. A fascinating 2024 study by Dolai and his colleagues demonstrated this beautifully.
What did they do?
They took amyloid fibrils and simply exposed them to ambient ultrasound waves in a laboratory.
Just sound waves.
Just sound waves. The mechanical vibration of the sound waves squeezing the crystal structure of the protein generated up to 1 volt of open-circuit electrical voltage.
Sound literally powering the protein. That is wild.
Exactly. Dolai's team actually used this property medically. They injected the amyloid fibers into cancer cells in a petri dish, hit them with ultrasound, and the localized electrical charge generated toxic reactive oxygen species that killed the tumor directly.
That's incredible.
But beyond generating electricity, the fibers also conduct electricity intrinsically. They do this through a quantum mechanical process called tyrosine hopping.
Tyrosine hopping. Tyrosine is an amino acid, right?
Correct. When the protein sheets stack together, the aromatic rings of the tyrosine molecules line up perfectly down the center of the fiber.
Like stepping stones.
Exactly like stepping stones. It creates a highly conductive pathway, allowing electrons to literally hop along the chain from one end to the other. You have a naturally occurring nanowire.
Wait, let me get this straight. You have a fiber that is tougher than spider silk. It survives gamma radiation. It generates its own electricity just by being exposed to ambient sound waves. It conducts current natively.
All of the above.
And because it's a prion-like structure, it operates via a templating cascade.
Yes. Explain what you mean by that for the listener.
Well, the defining feature of a prion is that it forces other proteins to copy its shape. So if you drop a single seed of this amyloid structure into a bioreactor full of raw liquid protein monomer, it naturally self-replicates.
It builds itself.
Right. It builds itself without us having to assemble it.
Exactly. No vacuum deposition chambers, no toxic chemical etching, no multi-billion-dollar clean rooms required like with silicon chips. It grows itself.
That is mind-blowing.
And Enfield posits that this is the ultimate computing substrate. When you combine this self-assembling conductive nanowire with DNA for data storage.
Wait. Using DNA as a hard drive?
Yes. DNA utilizes a 4-letter chemical code, A, T, C, G. It allows for ultra-dense quaternary data storage, which is vastly more efficient than our binary ones and zeros.
Okay, but how do you read the data off the DNA?
Enfield suggests using terahertz radiation to rapidly read and write that DNA data.
How does terahertz radiation interact with DNA? Why that specific frequency?
Because terahertz waves naturally match the low-frequency vibrational and rotational states of large macromolecules like the DNA double helix.
Okay, so they vibrate at the same pitch.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
You can use the radiation to ping the DNA, reading its structural state without breaking the chemical bonds.
So let me put this together. The DNA acts as the ultra-dense hard drive.
Yes.
The terahertz radiation is the read-write laser.
Right.
And the pion fibers act as the indestructible, self-powering physical wiring connecting it all together.
We've got it. You get a molecular scale biological processor that makes our current silicon chips look like Stone Age abacuses.
I am imagining this microscopic Lego brick that snaps itself together perfectly every single time.
It's exactly like that.
It conducts electricity, it harvests ambient sound for power, it stores data in DNA, and if you somehow manage to snap the wire in half, you just drop more raw protein on it and it self-repairs the gap.
It is the ultimate infrastructural building block.
Yeah.
But here it introduces a massive engineering challenge.
Yeah, that's what I've been screaming in my head for the last 5 minutes.
I thought you might be.
If this material self-assembles endlessly and it's basically indestructible, how do we tell it what shape to take?
The geometry problem.
Right. If I want to build a highly specific nanocircuit or a bone scaffold for a patient, how do I stop the templating cascade from just growing wildly into a giant useless blob of protein? Prions are great at amplifying, but they have zero respect for geometry.
That is the problem of spatial control. And the solution Enfield documents is incredibly elegant. It is called prion optogenetic lithography.
Optogenetics, meaning we use light to control biology.
Precisely. Let's break down the mechanics. Bioengineers take the prion-forming protein domain, the part that wants to stack into the amyloid fiber,
Okay.
and they genetically fuse it with a light-responsive optogenetic domain. These are natural light-sensing proteins borrowed from plants or bacteria.
Like what kind of proteins?
Examples in the literature include Cry2, LOV2, or the highly modular Phobit system.
So how do they interact?
Think of the optogenetic domain as a heavy padlock attached to a spring. In the dark, this domain holds the prion protein in a safe, completely inert shape.
So it's turned off.
Exactly. It cannot stack. It cannot self-assemble. You could have a whole vat of this stuff, and it's just harmless protein soup.
But when you introduce light,
When you shine a highly specific wavelength of laser light, usually blue light, onto the molecule, the optogenetic domain absorbs the photon.
and that triggers it.
Yes. The energy causes it to instantly change its physical shape. The padlock snaps open. This exposes the prion domain, and the self-assembly cascade begins immediately.
Oh, wow.
But, and this is the crucial pivot, it only self-assembles within the exact three-dimensional spatial coordinates where the light is hitting it.
You are literally using lasers to draw physical objects in 3D space inside a liquid in real time.
Yes. You write physical geometry with photons. Let's look at the medical applications Enfield highlights, because they sound like science fiction, but the mechanisms are grounded.
Give me an example.
Imagine a patient with a complex, inoperable tumor.
Okay.
A doctor uses an AAV viral vector to deliver the genetic code for these inert, optogenetic prion monomers directly to the patient's cells.
So the body starts making the soup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The tumor tissue becomes saturated with the harmless protein soup. Then the surgeon inserts a tiny fiber optic endoscope into the body.
Okay.
They shine a highly precise holographic light pattern that perfectly matches the 3D geometry of the tumor.
And wherever the light hits, the protein hardens.
Instantly. The harmless soup snaps into a dense therapeutic amyloid scaffold, wrapping around and infiltrating the cancer cells perfectly.
That is incredible.
And remember that piezoelectric property we discussed earlier?
Right, the Doli study. The scaffold generates electricity from sound.
Exactly. The patient goes home. The next day, the doctor simply applies an external ultrasound wand over the patient's body.
Oh my God.
The sound waves hit the internal protein scaffold. The scaffold generates a localized electrical charge, and it destroys the tumor from the inside out. No chemotherapy, no massive invasive surgery.
That is unbelievable. And the research notes also point toward food technology using this exact same method, printing cruelty-free meat.
The mechanism scales perfectly. Instead of the massive land, water, and ethical cost of raising cattle, you have a large bioreactor filled with nutritious, synthetic protein monomers.
When you just shine light into it.
You use arrays of structured light to literally write the exact microarchitecture of a steak. You program the light to form the muscle fibers, the connective tissue, the fat distribution, layer by molecular layer.
So it's not like that early lab-grown meat.
No, it's not that extruded, mushy paste you see in early lab-grown meats. It's a perfectly architected, texturally accurate protein lattice grown entirely from light.
I am mesmerized by the potential, but I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
We are talking about injecting a self-replicating, practically indestructible protein into the human bloodstream or using it to mass produce food. What stops it from going rogue?
You mean like a runaway cascade?
Exactly. If the light lock breaks, do we just trigger a global gray goo scenario where this stuff consumes all available biological matter?
It is the most vital, ethical, and safety concern in the entire framework, and Enfield is adamant about absolute containment. You cannot deploy an architecture like this without a rigorous kill switch.
Okay, walk me through the kill switch.
He outlines a two-tiered safety mechanism. First, at the genetic level, the viral vectors that produce the protein are designed to be chemically dependent.
Dependent on what?
They incorporate small molecule inhibitors. If you stop taking a specific harmless pill, the cells instantly halt production of the protein monomer. The fuel supply is cut off.
Okay, but what about the indestructible amyloid fibers that have already formed? Boiling lye won't kill them, remember? You said they're basically invincible.
That is where the second tier comes in. Structural dissolution. Bioengineers design CRISPR-edited chaperones or highly specific engineered proteases.
What do those do?
These are specialized molecular machines designed to do exactly one thing in the universe. Recognize the exact synthetic fold of our engineered amyloid, latch onto it, and actively unfold it.
Oh, so they just untangle it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once the bone scaffold has served its purpose or the tumor is dead, you introduce the chaperone molecule. It sweeps through the body, dismantling the indestructible scaffold and cleanly returning it to harmless, digestible amino acids.
It's a perfectly closed loop. So we possess the conceptual blueprint for the ultimate universal material.
We do.
It's indestructible, it self-assembles, it harvests its own energy, and we can shape it flawlessly with light. But Enfield doesn't just want to build nanocircuits or lab-grown steaks.
No, his vision is much bigger.
He wants to scale this microscopic Lego brick up to the size of planetary infrastructure. And this is where the deep dive connects back to a 125-year-old mystery involving Nikola Tesla.
To understand the planetary scale, we have to go back to 1899, to Tesla's experimental station in Colorado Springs.
Right. What was Tesla working on there?
Tesla made a profound realization. He identified that the Earth's surface and the lower edge of the ionosphere act together as a massive electromagnetic resonant cavity.
Like a giant echo chamber for electricity.
Exactly. He calculated its natural oscillation frequency. Decades later, in the 1950s, physicist Winfried Otto Schumann mathematically confirmed this, and it is now known as the Schumann resonance.
Which sits at roughly 7.83 hertz, right?
Correct. Tesla's grand vision was to build the Wardenclyffe Tower in New York to deliberately excite this cavity, pumping energy into the resonance to transmit wireless electricity across the globe.
But Wardenclyffe was a colossal failure. J.P. Morgan pulled his funding, the project collapsed, and they literally tore the tower down for scrap.
It failed commercially, but Enfield argues that Tesla's physics were directionally correct. What Tesla lacked wasn't the vision. He lacked the material science.
Because he was using old materials.
Right. He was trying to ring a planetary bell using copper wire and steel frames. They simply couldn't handle or generate the necessary coherence.
So it's the modern solution.
Enfield proposes a modern realization of this dream, the pylon grid.
A global network of towers. But instead of steel,
these towers are constructed utilizing the massive macro scaling of the cross-beta prion scaffold.
why in the world would you build a giant transmission tower out of a protein? I mean, I know it's strong, but why a tower?
Because of the molecular ordering of the amyloid structure. When you align these fibers at a macroscopic scale, their piezoelectric properties compound.
Oh, the electricity generating thing.
Yes. Enfield calculates this provides an 8,000-fold amplification of piezoelectric conversion compared to conventional materials like quartz or engineered ceramics.
8,000 times more efficient. That's absurd.
When you build a resonant transducer out of this biological material, you aren't just broadcasting a sloppy random radio wave. You're producing a highly coherent, phase-organized standing wave that is precisely tuned to the Earth's natural 7.83 hertz frequency.
But to ring the planet like a bell with that much force, you need an unfathomable amount of power. You can't just plug a protein tower into the local coal grid.
No, you definitely can't.
Enfield proposes something to power this called a molecular nuclear architecture. And reading through his notes, it makes our current nuclear power plants look like cavemen banging rocks together.
Structurally speaking, current nuclear power is incredibly primitive. It is, at its core, a very expensive way to boil water.
Explain that. Because people think of nuclear power as the absolute pinnacle of high-tech energy.
Think about the mechanics. A uranium atom splits. That fission reaction releases a massive amount of kinetic energy and radiation. But how do we harvest it?
We just heat things up.
Right, we literally just let the fuel rods get incredibly hot. We run water over them to create steam. The steam pressure turns a massive mechanical turbine.
And the turbine spins a magnet inside a coil of wire to generate electricity.
Exactly. At every single one of those mechanical steps, you lose massive amounts of thermodynamic work as waste heat. Most commercial nuclear plants operate at maybe 30 to 40% efficiency.
So we split the atom just to make a really sophisticated steam engine. But the molecular reactor changes that paradigm completely.
Completely. The architecture Enfield outlines integrates the cross-beta amyloid scaffold directly into the geometry of the nuclear fuel rod itself.
The protein is inside the fuel rod.
Yes. By doing this, the reactor captures energy through 3 simultaneous distinct pathways from a single fission event, completely bypassing the need for steam.
Walk me through the 3 pathways. What happens when the atom splits in this new reactor?
First, the beta-voltaic pathway. The crystalline structure of the amylase scaffold acts similarly to a solar panel.
But inside the reactor.
Right, but instead of capturing photons from the sun, it captures the high-energy beta particles directly emitted by the decaying isotope, converting that radiation immediately into electrical direct current.
Capturing the radiation directly. That's brilliant. What's the second?
Second, the piezoelectric pathway. Every time an atom splits, it violently repels its neighbors, creating a microscopic, localized acoustic shockwave.
A tiny sonic boom inside the lattice.
Exactly. Because the amyloid scaffold is incredibly piezoelectric, it absorbs that physical shockwave and instantly translates the mechanical stress into electricity.
And the third pathway.
The thermal pathway. The residual heat that isn't captured by the first 2 methods is absorbed by thermoelectric domains engineered into the protein, generating current from the temperature gradient.
So instead of letting the radiation and the blast wave just bounce around to make heat for water, this trimodal architecture captures the radiation, the physical concussive blast, and the heat of the atomic reaction all at the exact same time, down at the molecular level.
Exactly. And according to current Department of Defense-supported research on similar trimodal nanoscale architectures, this method pushes the overall energy capture efficiency to over 60%.
Wow.
It is clean, silent, incredibly efficient molecular nuclear power. And you use this massive energy output to feed the pylon grid.
So we have a distributed global grid of indestructible protein towers powered by molecular nuclear reactors, pumping massively powerful, highly coherent electromagnetic waves into the Earth's ionosphere.
That's the setup.
Tesla wanted to use this to turn on light bulbs in Paris from New York. But Enfield says the pylon grid does something far more profound than just transmitting electricity. It fundamentally alters the fabric of space-time.
This is the crucial pivot, where we leave classical electromagnetism behind and enter the realm of gravitational physics.
Okay, strap in.
To understand this, we have to look at a paper published in 1962 by a Soviet physicist named M.E. Gertzenstein.
The Gertzenstein mechanism. I had literally never heard of this before reading the framework.
Very few people have outside of advanced astrophysics. Gertzenstein mathematically proved a direct prediction of Einstein's general relativity.
Which was what?
That when an electromagnetic wave, like a radio wave or light, propagates through a strong transverse magnetic field, a fraction of that wave's energy spontaneously converts into a gravitational wave.
Wait, light turning into gravity?
Yes. They are coupled phenomena under extreme conditions.
Wow.
Now, consider the Earth. We have a massive planetary magnetic field, the magnetosphere.
Right.
Enfield points out a staggering, almost accidental reality of our modern world. Our current global internet, with all its 5G cell towers, Wi-Fi routers, and high-voltage power lines, is constantly bathing the Earth's magnetic field in chaotic electromagnetic waves.
Oh my God. Are you saying what I think you're saying?
Therefore, the current human internet is already acting as an accidental, entirely uncoordinated Gertzenstein instrument. We are currently bleeding tiny randomized gravitational waves out into the cosmos just by watching streaming video.
That is deeply unsettling, but also amazing. But the pylon grid isn't accidental. It is built specifically for coherence.
Precisely. By pumping perfectly phase-locked, highly coherent electromagnetic standing waves through the Earth's magnetic field, the pylon grid deliberately generates strong, engineered gravitational waves.
It transitions from a chaotic radio broadcast into a structured gravity internet.
Exactly.
And why is a gravity internet the ultimate goal? What makes it better than our current internet of fiber optic undersea cables and low Earth orbit satellites?
Because gravitational waves possess a property that electromagnetic waves do not. They absolutely do not care about matter. They are literal ripples in the geometric fabric of space-time itself.
So nothing blocks them.
Right. If you shoot a radio wave or a Wi-Fi signal at a concrete wall, the wave interacts with the atoms of the concrete, loses energy, and the signal drops.
Which is why I lose cell service when I drive into a tunnel.
Exactly. But a gravitational wave passes through the concrete wall, through the bedrock of the mountain, through the entire iron core of the Earth with virtually zero attenuation. The planet is entirely transparent to the wave.
And Enfield argues this marks the absolute end of line-of-sight civilization,
It does.
meaning physical geography no longer dictates our ability to connect. A submarine sitting miles down at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, or a team of miners trapped a kilometer underground in solid rock, would receive a perfect, unjammable, instantaneous signal.
The concept of being out of range just ceases to exist. You are connected to the global infrastructure, regardless of the matter between you and the transmitter.
Okay, I have to stop you here and challenge the physics because this sounds like a paradox to me.
Let's hear it.
If these gravitational waves pass through literally everything, including miles of dense planetary rock, without interacting with the atoms, how in the world do you catch the signal on the other side?
It's the obvious question.
How does my receiving device interact with a wave that just phased perfectly through the Earth? And more importantly, if we don't have copper cables running to the receiver, how do you power the device to read the signal?
It is the ultimate engineering hurdle of the entire framework. If the wave doesn't touch matter, how do you read it?
Right.
Enfield points to a verified quantum protocol known as quantum energy teleportation, or QET, to solve both the communication and the power problem simultaneously.
Quantum energy teleportation. Teleporting energy sounds like a direct violation of the laws of thermodynamics. You can't just create energy out of nowhere.
It sounds like magic, but it is rigorously mathematically proven, and it doesn't violate thermodynamics at all. The theory was first proposed by physicist Masahiro Hata in 2008.
Okay.
And remarkably, it was physically proven on IBM quantum computing hardware by researcher Kazuki Ikeda in 2023. Let's look at the mechanics of how it actually works, because you aren't actually sending physical energy packets flying through empty space.
Okay, break it down for me. I need another analogy.
First, we have to acknowledge that the vacuum of space is not truly empty. Quantum field theory dictates that the vacuum is a boiling sea of baseline quantum fluctuations.
Like virtual particles popping in and out of existence.
Yes, there is latent energy everywhere. Now imagine two locations. Point A, the pylon transmission tower, and point B, your receiver deep underground.
Got it.
The quantum fields at point A and point B share a baseline level of quantum entanglement simply by existing in the same universe.
They are subtly mathematically linked.
Yes. Here is how QET works. At point A, you make a deliberate measurement on the local quantum field. The act of measuring injects a tiny amount of physical energy into the field at point A.
Okay, you poke the field.
You then take the information about that measurement, the classical data of what you just observed, and you transmit that data to point B.
We use the unjammable gravity internet to send that classical data.
Exactly. The gravity wave carries the information through the solid rock. When your receiver at point B gets that specific information, it performs a localized quantum operation based strictly on that data.
And what does that do?
Because of the underlying entanglement, performing that specific operation allows point B to extract energy directly out of the local quantum vacuum.
Wait, let me see if I can create an analogy for this. Think of it like having two heavily entangled bank accounts in different cities.
I like where this is going.
I'm in New York, and I deposit $100 into the New York vault. I don't mail the physical $100 bill across the country in an envelope. Instead, I send a password, the information, to my friend in Los Angeles.
Right.
My friend takes that password, walks into the Los Angeles branch, and the password unlocks a local vault, allowing them to withdraw $100 locally.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Yeah.
The physical cash didn't travel across the country.
Yeah.
The information traveled, and the information provided the exact key required to unlock the localized resources at the destination.
Wow.
The energy was unlocked at point B because of the information sent from point A.
So as long as you have the data stream, you have limitless localized power. Energy literally moves as information moves.
Precisely. And this singular realization that the transmission of information is mathematically synonymous with the transmission of physical energy brings us to the absolute pinnacle of Enfield's deep dive.
It forces us to change our fundamental definition of the universe itself.
It does.
This is the crescendo of the framework, the Kardashev recalibration, the idea that information is geometry.
To understand this final leap, we have to synthesize three foundational concepts from modern physics.
What's the first one?
First, the thermodynamics of information. In 1961, physicist Rolf Landauer proved what is now called Landauer's principle. He demonstrated that erasing a single bit of information in a computer requires a minimum physical amount of heat energy to be released.
Meaning information isn't just abstract math, it has physical thermodynamic weight.
Exactly. So information is energy. Second, we look to the legendary physicist John Archibald Wheeler. He proposed the concept of it from bit.
It from bit. What does that mean?
Wheeler argued that the physical universe, every particle, every force, is fundamentally composed of binary yes or no quantum answers. Reality is made of information.
Okay, so reality is information and information is energy. What is the third concept?
Albert Einstein's general relativity. Einstein proved that gravity is not a traditional invisible tether pulling things together. It is the physical curvature, the geometry of space-time itself.
Matter tells space-time how to curve, and space-time tells matter how to move.
Right. Let's combine the equations. If information has energy weight, and the universe is made of information, and gravity is just the geometry created by energy.
Then information equals energy equals geometry. They aren't different things. They are the exact same fundamental reality observed from three different angles.
Yes. And Enfield takes this unified equation and applies it to the Kardashev scale.
Okay, remind the listener what the Kardashev scale is.
Traditionally, astrophysicists use the Kardashev scale to measure how advanced an alien civilization is based purely on consumption. A Type 1 civilization harvests all the energy of its home planet.
Right.
A Type 2 civilization builds a massive megastructure, a Dyson swarm of solar panels, to surround and harvest all the light from its home star. A Type 3 civilization harvests the energy of its entire galaxy.
It's basically a scale of who can build the biggest interstellar battery.
And Enfield argues that this traditional view is incredibly primitive. It misses the point entirely. It assumes an advanced civilization just wants to run more air conditioners. He proposes a profound recalibration of what it means to be a Type 3 civilization.
How does he change the definition?
Think about the Dyson swarm surrounding the star. In Enfield's framework, an advanced civilization doesn't just use a Dyson swarm to passively collect sunlight.
What do they do instead?
They use the swarm's piezoelectric and photonic nodes, built from the same architectural logic as our pylon grid, to actively inject coordinated acoustic pressure waves back into the star. These are called acoustic P-modes.
They are pumping sound and pressure waves back into the plasma of the sun.
Yes. By rhythmically modulating the star's internal acoustic pressure and density, you are physically altering its mass distribution. And according to Einstein, if you alter the mass distribution of a scalar body, you are directly altering its stress energy tensor.
I need an ELI 5 on the stress energy tensor.
The stress energy tensor is essentially the mathematical engine inside Einstein's equations that dictates exactly how much space-time curves. If you control the tensor, you control the gravity.
Oh my God.
By injecting these information-rich acoustic waves into the star, the civilization is literally throttling the star's gravitational output.
They are playing the star like a massive celestial musical instrument.
Exactly. They're using the star as a gravitational router. The true threshold of a Type 3 civilization isn't about harvesting the most galaxies.
What is it then?
The true threshold is gravity mastery. It is the profound transition from passively reading the energy of the universe to deliberately writing to the geometric fabric of space-time. You aren't just a biological organism living inside the universe anymore. You are actively operating its source code.
Let's just pause and trace the path we just walked because it is staggering.
Lots to take in.
We started this deep dive talking about the moral imperative of saving the digital code of an old, dead video game so that a community of human beings could keep playing and connecting together. And by following that exact same architectural logic, keep the soul, fix the barriers, build systems of support rather than erasure, we ended up realizing that by mastering the code of information, we can literally play a star like an instrument to connect a civilization.
It is the ultimate cosmic manifestation of terraforming. Enfield's entire framework is a unified theory of preservation.
That's a beautiful way to say it.
It shows us that whether we are designing AI teammates so a gamer isn't left alone in a dead lobby, or creating transparent educational profiles so an incarcerated person isn't abandoned in solitary confinement, or building a biological gravity internet.
Or constructing a Dyson swarm to modulate a star's gravity.
The goal is exactly the same. We must build structures that support life, connection, and continuous growth.
Instead of terraforming our reality through isolation, deprivation, and arbitrary erasure, keep the soul, fix the barriers, whether it's digital, biological, or celestial.
It is a blueprint for a civilization that chooses to remember itself.
What an incredible, mind-expanding journey. But before we sign off, we want to leave you, the listener, with one final, deeply provocative implication from this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
Let's go back to the Gertzenstein mechanism. The fact that our current primitive internet is already accidentally bleeding weak, chaotic gravitational waves out into the cosmos.
Right.
Think about our ongoing search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We have spent decades aiming massive radio dishes at the stars, listening for a blip, waiting for a localized radio signal to prove we aren't alone.
It's what we've always done.
But what if advanced civilizations aren't looking for our primitive, easily blocked radio signals at all? What if they already understand the physics and they know that radio is just a localized, planetary-scale toy?
Oh, that's a chilling thought.
What if the galactic community is waiting for us to intentionally turn on our gravity internet? And until we organize our infrastructure to generate those geometric waves, we are just a civilization talking to ourselves in a soundproof room, completely invisible to the greater universe. Think about that the next time you log online and your router blinks.
It certainly changes your perspective on the invisible waves passing through your living room right now.
It absolutely does. Keep questioning the structures around you, keep exploring, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.